unfold.
When you think about the Cold War, you probably picture massive armies, iron curtains, and superpowers staring each other down. But what if I told you that one of the most effective weapons in that entire conflict wasn't a bomb or a tank, but something way, way smaller? This is the incredible story of how a tiny act of kindness in a city on its knees completely changed the game. Just think about that for a second. These aren't the words of some seasoned politician or a four-star general. This came from the mouths of children, kids living in the rubble of Berlin, a city that was ground zero for a brand new kind of war. They got it. They knew exactly what was on the line. So put yourself in that pilot's boots for a minute. You're flying supplies into a city that's basically being held hostage, and you come face to face with these kids who are talking about freedom, not about how hungry they are. They're not begging. So what do? What could you possibly give them that would even matter? That's it. That's the answer. Something so small it almost sounds like a joke, right? But believe me, those two little sticks of gum were about to start a firestorm of hope that no blockade could ever put out. Okay, so let's zoom in on that one moment. The date is July 17th, 1948. We're at Tempelhof Airfield in Berlin. And a young American pilot, a guy named Gale Halvorsen, is standing by the perimeter fence. He's not there on any official duty, he's just kind of killing time with his camera. But what happens right here, right now, is going to change his life forever. There were about 30 kids there, gathered at the fence, and they absolutely floored him. He was used to kids begging for candy or treats, but not these kids. No, they started asking him questions about the planes, about the airlift, and then they told him, don't give up on us. We can live on little food, but we can't live without freedom. Halvorsen was just deeply moved. He digs into his pockets, and all he's got are 2 sticks of gum. So he breaks them in half and passes the pieces through the fence. And the reaction? Wow. There was no fighting, no grabbing. The kids who got a piece immediately broke off little slivers to share with the others. And here's the part that gets me. The kids who got nothing, they just asked if they could smell the empty wrappers, just to get a tiny whiff of a world that wasn't at war. So to really get why a stick of gum could be so powerful, we need to pull the camera back. We need to see the absolute nightmare that Berlin was in 1948. The city was this little island of democracy, completely surrounded, trapped deep inside Soviet-controlled East Germany. A real flashpoint. The Soviets decided they were going to squeeze this city until it gave up. On June 24th, they shut it all down. Every road, every railway, every canal leading into West Berlin, cut off. No food, no fuel, no anything. The goal was brutal, and it was simple. Starve 2.5 million people until the Western Allies packed up and left. And this was the reality for people on the street. The city had only about a month's worth of food. People were trying to survive on 900 calories a day. I mean, that's barely enough to function. This wasn't some political chess match. It was a full-blown humanitarian disaster waiting to happen. So what do? Do you try to break the blockade and risk starting World War III? Or do you just abandon the city? Well, the Allies picked a third option. An absolutely audacious, some would say impossible plan. Supply the entire city by air. They called it Operation Vittles, and it was nothing short of a miracle. A non-stop conveyor belt of planes in the sky, 24/7. Which brings us right back to Gale Halvorsen at that fence. That encounter with the kids, the smell of the gum wrappers, it stuck with him. He couldn't shake it. He felt like he had to do something more. He had to make a promise. He told the kids he'd be back the next day and that he'd drop candy for them from his plane. But, the kids were smart. They pointed out a pretty big problem. There were planes landing every few minutes. How on earth would they know which one was his? And his answer was simple and just brilliant. I'll wiggle my wings, he said. And with that, he became a legend. He was Uncle Wuckel Flugel, or Uncle Wiggly Wings to every kid in Berlin. Now, you gotta remember, this was a completely unauthorized rogue mission at first. Halvorsen and his buddies pooled their candy rations and made these little parachutes out of handkerchiefs. He was sure he was going to get court-martialed. And when a reporter's photo of the candy drops landed on his commander's desk, he was called in, probably thinking his career was over. But instead, the head of the airlift, General Tunner, saw the absolute genius in it. It was a massive PR win. So the secret mission became an official one, Operation Little Vittles. And once he got the official green light, oh man, this thing just exploded. What started with one pilot's personal candy stash suddenly became a full-blown national movement back in the United States. I mean, just look at these numbers. It's wild. We're talking 23 tons of candy, 46,000 pounds, dropped using more than 250,000 tiny handmade parachutes. A huge part of the effort was run out of Chicopee, Massachusetts, where school kids would spend their afternoons sewing these little parachutes for kids they'd never met, an entire ocean away. And the speed of it all is just breathtaking. In July, it's one guy with a secret and 3 handkerchiefs. By September, just 2 months later, it's a nationwide cause. And even after Halverson himself was rotated back home in January, the candy just kept on falling. The whole piece started had truly taken on a life of its own. But, behind these huge, impressive statistics are these deeply human stories. And for me, none of them hit harder than the story of a little 7-year-old girl named Mercedes Wilde. See, Mercedes could never manage to catch one of the candy parachutes, so she decided to write a letter to the chocolate uncle. In it, she told him that his big, loud planes were scaring her chickens. And she asked if he could please drop some candy near her house and even give him a little map telling him to look for her white chickens in the yard. Well, Halverson couldn't spot her chickens from the air, but he did something even better. He found her address and mailed her a package directly, with some gum and a lollipop, and he included a personal letter. Years later, Mercedes said it was never about the candy, it was the letter. For a little girl whose father had been killed in the war, that connection to the chocolate uncle was everything. It was a symbol of hope and care. The story doesn't end when the blockade was finally lifted. Not even close. Operation Little Vittles created a whole new template for humanitarian aid, and it would really define the rest of Gail Halverson's life. For decades after Berlin, Halverson continued this work. He personally took part in humanitarian drops in other war-torn places, from Bosnia to Albania to Iraq. That simple idea, using an airdrop to deliver not just supplies, but a message of hope, that became his life's mission, and it inspired so many others to follow in his footsteps. Halverson passed away in 2022 at the incredible age of 101, and right up until the end, he always pointed back to that one single moment, that one choice he made out of fence in Berlin. He said it himself, 2 sticks of gum changed my life forever. A tiny act of empathy that literally set the course for his entire life, and honestly, it helped change the moral direction of the Cold War. So this amazing story of the candy bomber really leaves us with a question, doesn't it? We look at the world, we see all these huge, overwhelming problems, and it's easy to feel like there's nothing we can do. But Gail Halverson's story is the ultimate proof that sometimes the smallest, most simple act of kindness, that can be the thing that changes everything. So you have to wonder, what are our 2 sticks of gum?